When I think of a hyper-productive organization, I think of the military with their early mornings, strict time management, and super efficient execution. At least from the outside, it seems like a very well-oiled machine. So today I thought that we could steal their productivity habits and apply them to our own lives. I went into a pretty big rabbit hole researching all this military productivity stuff. I really found some cool things. I think a lot of them can actually help us have a more effective daily routine and be more proactive as opposed to just reacting to all the chaos that comes our way. Hola amigos, I'm Diego, a software engineer working in London, and if you're interested in reclaiming your time from digital distractions and supercharging your productivity, make sure you subscribe and join the team. Let's get into it. So the 52-17 rule is a time management technique that the military applies to stay on target. It is a variation of the Pomodoro technique where you work for 25 minutes and then rest for 5. I've always had problems with the Pomodoro technique because it just seems that those 25 minutes are just way too short to actually enter into the deep work and the flow state. So this 52-17 rule where you work for 52 minutes and then rest for 17 minutes seems a lot more practical to be able to achieve that deep work. So I thought this was really cool because for me, at least when I'm trying to do deep work, I don't really have a set time limit. I sometimes work for an hour and a half and then take a break, and then sometimes just work for an hour and then take a break, and there's no structure to it. So finding this 52-17 rule, which seemed like frankly some odd and just arbitrary numbers, but the military has done some research on this and has found it to be the most effective for their organization, and I think we can definitely take some learnings from that. So as we mentioned, working for those 52 minutes, you want to be as focused as possible on one particular task with no other external distractions, and then when you get to the 17 minutes break, make those breaks as effective as possible. We've talked about it in the channel before, but make sure you stretch, hydrate, remove yourself from social media and any other digital distractions that you might have during your break so that the break is as restorative as possible. If you can, definitely leave your workplace or the place where you're working, your co-working space, whatever it is, go out, take a walk, look at some trees, listen to the birds singing, do as many things as you can that are removed and as different as possible from your work so that your brain can truly have that restorative pause and break to be able to reset its ability to focus and its ability to maintain that attention for the next 52-minute work session. And I really thought this was super cool. Again, a cool variation on the Pomodoro technique, so it's something we could definitely apply into our own routines. So then I found this really cool framework that the military uses called the Rule of One. This rule dictates that for every new task or project that you receive, 2 existing tasks or projects have to be either eliminated or completed. And I thought this was such a beautifully simple way of focusing on the essential things in your to-do list and the essential things in your life, and a wonderful framework to keep new responsibilities from just piling in, and then you not being able to tackle anything because you are so overwhelmed from all of the different tasks and new projects that have just been added onto your responsibility. And a lot of the time you think, I can handle this. I have enough time to be able to do all of these projects at once. I'll take my time, I'll go step by step. But I think this rule really forces you to only pick the essential things, be very, very selective about what responsibilities, new projects, new tasks you take on, and taking stock of what you currently have to actually accomplish. Because one of the most important things we can do for our productivity is definitely being selective about what we choose to spend our time on, what we work on. Because I know for me, a lot of the time I want to spend my efforts and my energy on the most important tasks, the most important projects, but then without any structure and all these tasks building up constantly day by day, I end up doing nothing and just resorting to the lowest impact task, just checking my email, going through some really simple and brain dead admin tasks. And that doesn't move the needle, and I think probably a lot of you can relate to the same thing happening to you. The next thing would be to schedule your day like a military officer. Military officers schedule their day in very, very specific ways, even setting time for things like taking a shower, brushing their teeth, eating, and those specific things that you might not initially consider to add to your calendar, but it's definitely a very useful thing to do because that way you truly understand the time you actually have free to focus on those important tasks. The concept of time blocking is quite popular, but I think a lot of us do it very wrong in a sense, because a lot of the time I look at my calendar and there's just a big block that says work, and I don't really know what I'm doing during the work block. Because for time blocking to be truly effective, you need to have at least a plan of what you're going to do during that day, plan ahead, and it takes a lot of investment, and a lot of us aren't willing to, sit down at the end of each day and prepare for the next. But time blocking is such an effective way of winning the battle ahead because you already know what you're going to be doing. You already have it scheduled in, and you know exactly how much time you're going to take for your lunch, for the breaks, for the work, work. And this is super useful and something that I've realized was sorely missing from my routine, because again, as I mentioned, every time I look into my calendar, there's usually big blocks of either work or break, and I don't really know what the work is going to look like or what the break is going to look like. So being more specific about our time blocking is super useful and something we can really steal from the military to apply to our own lives. And just a few quick tips to actually improve our time blocking game. I would suggest that you set a specific time limit for each activity. And the beginning is going to be very difficult because it's very hard to know how long an actual work task is going to take, or how long you take in the shower or whatever it is. So make sure you have a timer with you and, press it at the beginning of the task and then record that time at the end. And that way, you know specifically the time it takes for you to complete a task. And through time, it'll get better. You'll become better at estimating how long those tasks are going to take. And it's going to be super useful because your calendar is actually going to be a reflection of the reality of your life in a sense. And the other thing would be to differentiate personal tasks from work tasks, because you don't want everything to just blend together into the same calendar. You should probably have separate calendars for that and maybe color code them so there's differentiation and you know when work ends and the personal things you need to take care of begin. Another thing the military does very well is maintaining its gear and equipment in tip-top shape. Whenever that mission comes around, everybody's gear and equipment is ready to go and everybody's just ready to execute. So I think we can really take inspiration from this and apply it to our own lives and our own work lives, because maintaining that physical and digital environment in tip-top shape is a great way to maximize your productivity, because when it gets to that moment when you need to sit down, hustle, do the work, you know that your systems work, you know where to find your files, you know what you need to do next, you know exactly how to do that task because you've already broken it down. So having that structure prior to getting to the project or prior to getting to that task you need to complete is super useful, because I personally don't take as much time as I should planning out the work that I want to do, and then I just waste time doing admin tasks, doing things that don't really matter, and not focusing on the important things because I'm either just scrambling trying to plan last minute, or I just don't have the time to figure out what to do and what to do next, and I just end up wasting a lot of time and it's incredibly inefficient. I'm sure, again, a lot of you probably empathize with this. So it's a really cool thing or concept that the military really focuses on, maintaining that gear and equipment. And I think something cool that we can apply if we work digitally and use computers a lot is having a really solid file management structure. Because a lot of the time I'm looking for files and I don't know where they are. And it's really frustrating because you spend so much time just looking for the information when you could just be a lot more productive if you just had that information readily available and you know exactly where everything is and the things kind of connect and link to each other. So I recently changed my entire file management structure and I followed Tiago Forte's Para framework to organize my files, which essentially breaks them down into projects, areas, resources, and archive. And now I find my files so much faster and I know where everything is most of the time. And it's been such a game changer because I'm not spending time looking through menus and submenus trying to find that receipt or trying to find that code that I wrote 2 years ago and I need it right now. So it's been super helpful for me. I'm going to leave the link down below on how to organize this file management structure through the Para system with Tiago Forte. Definitely worth a look. And I would also recommend the Alfred app. The Alfred app is like Spotlight on steroids for Mac. I'm sure there are alternatives for Windows. If I find some, I'll definitely link them down below as well. But the Alfred app allows you to do like a super search within your entire computer and you can target specific things. So you can look through files specifically, or you can look through specific apps, or you can link certain things and create automations. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. For me, I don't use all of it, but I've definitely found that I can get to my files a lot faster than just using Spotlight, which to me is a little slow. Alfred is super fast. So I'm gonna leave it linked down below as well so that you can also maintain your gear and equipment, find your files, and hopefully this will boost your productivity in your day-to-day. And the final thing the military does that really ensures that sustainable productivity is that they end their days with a debrief. This essentially means that you take stock of what happened during the day and you prepare for the day ahead. Very simple concept, but I think very few of us actually apply it to our own lives. I know that this was a complete game changer for me when I applied it a couple of years back when I was working fully remote for a tech startup. It really allowed me to focus on those essential projects, focus on those essential tasks, plan for the day ahead, break down those tasks, and be ready for the battle of the next day. I think really 50% of the battle is probably won if you know what you're doing and know how you're doing. So what I would recommend is definitely take a few minutes at the end of your workday, ensure that you close all of the open loops that you had during that day. So close all the tabs, take stock of what you did and what you have pending and maybe push it to the next day. Make sure to fill out your to-do list, not only filling out in the sense of a very general sense, okay, tomorrow I need to debug this code or tomorrow I need to create this new feature for the app. No, break those steps down, because if you don't break those steps steps down, you're gonna end up looking at that to-do list item and just wondering, okay, what did I need to do exactly? How am I going to do it? And then you spend so much precious time trying to figure out how you're actually going to do things instead of doing them. And I think that is, again, 50% of the battle won. If you can do that debrief at the end of the day and prepare for the day ahead and take stock of what you did, maybe, recognize as well the victories of that day, that gives you such great motivation and mental clarity to be able to close off that day, rest, go have dinner, meet some friends, whatever you need to do in the evening to restore, and then the next day just be ready to fire on all cylinders again. Oh, and one extra thing for ending the day with the debrief, definitely make sure that you know what the most important task is for the next day and book some time early in the morning, you alone, no distractions, to be able to complete that task. Because when you complete that task as early as possible, that's another great victory that boosts your productivity and your motivation forward for the rest of the day. So now I want to add 4 quick fire round tips that I wanted to work into the list and I really didn't want to leave behind, but I also don't want to delve too deeply into them. So the first one is early bird gets the worm. The military wakes up incredibly early to have those initial hours of quiet where you can focus on really important things, because before the rest of the world wakes up, essentially, you can focus on either doing exercise or maybe getting ahead with work. If you have any side projects or any side hustles that you're working on, doing them early in the day is great, because when you leave work in the evening, doing it then is usually very difficult because we're super tired. So make sure to target waking up as early as you can and using those initial hours to move the needle. Second thing, meal planning and preparation. Meal planning has been revolutionary for me. I've done meal planning for a few years now, and it really has changed the game for me, because if I don't focus on my health, I do feel that my productivity is impacted very negatively. And being able to have a healthy meal that you've already prepared in advance is incredibly useful. You're maintaining your vitamins, your minerals, your nutrients, everything that you need for your brain to be able to focus, and you don't waste time cooking during the week, which is that's the greatest thing that I think have gotten out of this, because it's so boring to sit down every single day of the week and cook and maintain a healthy lifestyle. So definitely meal plan, prepare in advance. Making your bed every morning. This is something I try to do every day. Sometimes I can't get to it because I'm lazy, but whenever I do it, I do feel a lot better, because it's that initial victory, that initial sense of establishing order out of complete chaos, and getting that first task done really motivates me to continue working hard. And then when you get home in the evening and you see your bed is done, you just appreciate it. It's a nice thing. Admiral William H. McRaven essentially wrote a book that is titled, I think, Make Your Bed. I read it a couple of years ago. It's a great book, and it talks about exactly that, how that initial victory is super helpful. And the military is very strict about making their beds and making them as, you've probably seen the movies. I think it's Saving Private Ryan, I think, has a specific scene about this where the bed is so tight and so perfect that it looks like a hotel bed. So yeah, try and do that every day. And the final thing that the military really uses to get through those hard obstacles and maintain their productivity or their execution on missions and projects is using humor. I think especially because they face such difficult and traumatic things during a military career, that the humor is a beautiful way to not only bond people together, but also get through those hard times, those obstacles. And I'm not saying us in our day-to-day are gonna face the same level of difficulty or trauma that the military faces, but each one of us definitely has faced obstacles and very difficult things in our own work and our own personal life, and this has negatively affected our productivity and our ability to complete the projects that we've set out for ourselves. I was born and raised in Venezuela, a South American country that's in the news for all the wrong reasons all the time. There's a ton of crime, poverty, economic, political uncertainty. It's crazy. It's a crazy place. And I remember being very, very young and how everybody used humor to get through those difficult times, get through those difficult moments. And I know, again, this might sound trite or a little, I guess, overly optimistic for a lot of people that may be facing very difficult personal or health situations in their own life, and they feel like they can't really focus on their projects or focus on moving things ahead either in their work or personal lives. But I think a little bit of humor and surrounding yourself with people who value humor and are always teasing and trying to have fun is super helpful, because life is pretty difficult sometimes, and humor is such a beautiful way of trying to get past that and seeing the brighter side. So these tips were all about productivity and being as effective as possible and stealing those secrets that the military has. And if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about specific productivity strategies to stand out at work, definitely check this video. It's been super well received in the channel. I know you'll find some very good stuff in there that'll help you out. And yeah, thanks for watching, and see you there, amigos.